Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Interact podcast. My name is Josh Haynam, co founder and CEO at Interact. Today, I'm joined by Daniella Flores, writer who has created some excellent quizzes. And I'm super curious to ask you about those, Daniella, but also go into content strategy in general, because I've listened to some of your other podcasts and I know you've done just a ton of cool stuff with content. So thanks for being here, first of all. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited for the conversation.
Yeah, so let's start off with our middle ground, which is quizzes, because you've made some really great ones. Tell us about some of those, and then I'm curious to ask you some questions about like how you formulated those, and then let's go from there into content if you're cool with that.
Yeah, so I recently created about about three different quizzes I wrote. The fourth one they wrote, and we just kind of put it together. For salary transparency, one was a side hustle quiz, like which side hustle type is best for you. One is for a find your trade quiz, looking at different trade jobs, electricians, carpenters, all the good stuff. Then there's a tech career quiz, and we have the Are You Being Underpaid quiz. So, that's a great one for when people type online, Am I being underpaid? We come up first, which is great.
I like all those. Where did the ideas come from?
So the idea for Am I Being Underpaid, that came from Hannah, of course. Hannah Williams, the Sailor of Transparent Street. This came from her own experience of when she found out she was being paid like $20,000 less than the market rate for that position. So she took her own experience and kind of put that quiz together. And then we put all of basically for that one, it was already created in Interact when I got the Interact, portal access. So I created the page around it. We, created some copy thanks to your recommendation to kind of help its ranking in Google. And so that one came from her experience. The side hustle quiz was I formerly owned a side hustle site called I Like to Dabble. I sold it about back in April. I'm still mourning it, but for that one, I've written a ton of different articles for like CNBC, BuzzFeed, and Time and CNET on side hustles. I had been side hustling since I was a teenager. I created this whole platform around it. So I took that experience and created the side hustle quiz, which now also ranks on number one on Google. It kind of changes, the time you check it in the browser, of course, and looking at incognito. Dave Ramsey is the one that keeps switching with us, but whatever. I'm not a Ramsey fan, but
Unfortunate.
yeah. So I took that one and we separated out into four different side hustle types, like side gigs, creative side hustles, analytical ones. I'd have to look at the fourth one again just because there's a lot of stuff in my head. For the tech career one, that one was definitely more involved. And there was about like 6 or 8 different results that we set up in it, which is really cool in the tool because you can kind of, if there's one answer that kind of goes to like 2 of them go to like the same thing, you can kind of link them both into the same thing, which for all of the quiz tools I had used in the past, which were ones that mainly were like a WordPress kind of plugin thing, they had never had that kind of functionality. And it was really weird to figure out how to send the results. Most of the time you had to create your own pages for the results to go anywhere. It wouldn't really give you a great feature of here's your result here. And you have links and everything included into it, which we also, incorporated affiliate links on those results, which is great because, a lot of folks, when they're trying to find what career is best for them, they need, some resources, some tools, some courses. So it's a great opportunity for affiliate marketing in that as well. And the Find Your Trade quiz is another one that was pretty more involved with a lot more results and a lot more questions because of so many different types of sectors that have trade jobs.
Yeah, I like the use cases there where it's knowledge that you or Hannah have, and you're taking that and then just kind of breaking it down into a few different results at the end. It's like nothing too crazy, but like you said, there's not a lot of tools that do it. We're kind of the only one that lives in this pure quiz space, which is why I also appreciate that you and Hannah, and there's a number of companies that have done this now. You create these quiz like hubs where you have more than one quiz and you're using quizzes to address certain topics. I was curious your perspective on that, where it's like, where do you think a quiz is helpful as far as like going into a piece of content or making content better, and where do you think it's not helpful?
Oh, this is such a good question. So it's definitely helpful when somebody is trying to make a decision and there's too many options out there. And it's something that's very much like a common problem. And they can go right then and there and get like the information they need and resources to get started. I've taken some horrible quiz. And of course, when it's short and sweet, but also packed with value. I've taken quizzes like a lot of the times I have like ads on Instagram and I see a tool that's really cool and it has me start with a quiz. And it's like, by then I'm like 10 questions and I'm like, okay, immediately escape. I will never go back to that site again. So that's one thing is like, of course, how you structure your quiz and who the quiz is for, and not anything that's too simple, like something that's like, oh, take this quiz to figure out whatever. And it's something that maybe you already know, or it's, too simple. And then, you may not want to take it. But yeah, definitely something that promises value, helps you decide something that's been really hard to decide with something that has too many options, a career quiz or a side hustle quiz, and help you clarify on those things and get the resources you need to take some action.
Yeah, it's like complicated enough, but not too complicated is what I'm hearing.
But yeah, basically.
Somewhere between like, oh, the readout from ChatGPT is fine for this, and there's definitely problems that are too complicated to be a quiz. Like you actually need to talk to a professional to figure this out, kind of deal.
Yeah, like a
Somewhere in
tech,
between those.
yeah, like something like a tech career quiz. Let's say there are students that are just trying to figure out what they want to do, or somebody who wants to pivot to tech. That was popular for a while until AI propaganda basically is crushing it now. But when it's something like that, where there's a few resources for them to go that they trust to find that information, Salary Transparent Street is a very trusted brand. And of course, going to that kind of quiz is very valuable for them, especially when it says, we're going to look at your skills, what you want to do, and then your lifestyle, the lifestyle you want to create around something like let's say a side hustle or a tech job where you don't want to work 24/7. We're going to have those questions include those kinds of scenarios as well. Like, what kind of lifestyle do you want to build? Where do you want to work, remote or at home? Do you want to work nights and weekends, or do you want a set schedule? Those kinds of things. So it has to be a resource that promises value, at the end say like, oh, we'll also include free tools and resources for you to actually get started with the type that you have been matched with. All that promises a lot to folks, I think, to actually get them to engage with the quiz.
Yeah, and in that, like what you're saying there, I hear like an understanding of the audience, like asking questions that are relevant in a way that is specific to who is coming to the quiz versus just like a generic, do you prefer to work outside or inside? Like that's a helpful question in some sense, but the ones you just gave as examples are more particular, and
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. And that kind of, in my mind, shifts us over a little bit to content strategy in general. Because with AI these days, right, like if you are going to just give a generic readout of whatever topic, it's kind of useless, I guess. Like you could get it from AI. So then that takes it over into like, what does make good content, especially written content, which you're excellent at in 2025? We're almost 2026. What do you think that looks like now and going forward in terms of creating blog pieces, articles that are truly helpful when the baseline of like the average answer to every question is immediately accessible through AI?
Right. So I used to work in tech myself. I'm a former software engineer. So I love the whole AI conversation because I have both. I'm torn between like where we are with AI isn't something that I think is ideal. I think they need to go back and reevaluate how they're developing things because it's not sustainable. But currently for writing, AI is actually, I think, really good for writers because it's raising the bar on what is seen as good writing. How everything, ChatGPT, the way it talks to folks, it likes to butter you up. It talks in a certain rhythm, I guess. It uses certain words, certain punctuation, but I hate that it's stolen all of that from us without paying. Like the M dash, for example, people, I've had clients who are like, oh, be careful about using the M dash. We don't want to be seen as somebody that might use AI. And it's like, I've been using the M dash for the last 10 years, but the M dash belonged to us first. Now it's something is seen as, oh, that's AI. No, it's not. It was human first, and then it became AI because the only reason it can do anything for us is because it has all the data that it was trained on that came from us in the beginning. But now, because everyone sees a certain kind of format or certain kind of writing as that must be AI, that challenges writers to make their writing better, make it more authentic, for you to increase your own perspective on a certain subject as well, because that will allow you to write just better. I can't come up with a better vocabulary right now, which is shameful as a writer, but I think it raises the bar, but also gives us more tools, of course, for research and analysis is what I like to use it for. But I am very much aware of what do they call it? A hallucination. So AI hallucination, like ChatGPT's newest version is still shown to hallucinate over a third of the time. So if you think that if you're using it for 3 minutes, it could be that one of those minutes was complete garbage or something that was just kind of, it was confused on what it was telling you. It didn't really connect one point to the other and it stopped in the middle. So with research, I do a lot of manual legwork still for research because I've had instances where ChatGPT tells me one thing and I know a certain part of that one thing. And I'm like, I will correct it and be like, no, it's actually like this. And then it says, oh, I'm sorry, and says whatever. But, and I've tried a ton of different tools. I play around with Perplexity sometimes. And with Claude, I played around with like the AI vibe coding tools too, to just see if like there's certain tools I can create as a writer for myself with those tools. And AI still comes short. We're not where a lot of the tech companies like to market it as, because of course they're in the business of making a lot of money. They just want you to use it as much as possible so they can get as much of that data as they can because they don't have enough data. They've said this. Meta has said in the past that the reason they're acquiring companies is because they need data for their own AI. They can't compete with OpenAI. So a lot of the stuff we see kind of in the mainstream with about AI, like, oh, AI is going to take creative jobs, writing jobs first, because that was the first use case for large language models like ChatGPT. And I say it's not going to take our jobs because AI cannot only, the content can't stop at AI. Everyone cannot always go to AI for content and then not have original creators creating content anymore, because then AI will collapse. If there's no more new data for it to train on, it's training on its own data, which does eventually cause a model to collapse. So sustainably long term, it cannot take our jobs. It won't function the way that they want it to make money. So because they want to be so greedy and make a lot of money, it literally cannot take our jobs. It can take some, of course, low level, and we know those kind of the quick tasks that AI agents can replace, but those really creatively detailed jobs where it requires a human perspective and human feeling, because marketing, you have to connect with emotions of others. In that respect, I think your job is safe, and most people's jobs are safe.
No, I hear all that, and I think that's a great perspective. Like the idea of leveling up from the baseline where, I think, not, I won't throw anybody under the bus, but back in like 2018, 2019, there were, at least from my perspective, a number of copywriters that were kind of phoning it in and like doing a very basic job of like just saying the most literal version of what a brand does and then charging for that. And it's like, okay, well, if you're just going to say the literal version of things, I don't find that to be valuable. Like the stuff you're talking about there, figuring out the emotions behind the audience and how to connect on a human level with the people on the other side of the screen using words, that's really hard to do. Saying literally what a product does is not hard to do. And so if we can move forward, that's great. I do wonder, maybe you have a perspective on this. This is like kind of an out there thought, not an out there thought, but it's just a thought. Like I've heard a lot of, specifically in like the web design space, and I don't know if this happens in your world with writers as well. Like a lot of people, as soon as ChatGPT hit, just got rid of their copywriters, got rid of their writers. They're like, we got this covered now. And it seems like it's still kind of happening. But then, like you're kind of alluding to, everything is kind of converging to be the same. Like every website looks the same, sounds the same, uses the exact same words. And I don't know how we get out of that, I guess is my question for you. Do you have an
Yes.
idea how we move past that? Because it's like, are we going to end up in a Wall-E world, right?
Oh
It's
my
like,
God, the Wall. I love that movie. Yes, the Wall-E world. Oh my God. Or so I love this question. All this stuff makes me just really excited to talk about because it's, this new thing. It's exciting to learn about and also to kind of find its limitations and
mhm.
kind of just kind of tells the future a little bit. So with everything sounding the same, like I have a client who in the past they got rid of all of their paid marketing folks
Hmm.
and they wanted to focus on SEO and they hired one person to basically just take stuff what ChatGPT told them and basically rewrite it, which they ended up spending more time on each time. So it's
Yeah.
like, and that's another thing I'm seeing a lot from companies, big companies too, where they have fired a certain part of their content team or writing team and replaced it with, one person to just kind of get the basics out of ChatGPT and then edit it. And then they now hire people to take entire articles that were generated by AI and then rewrite the entire thing to sound like a human. And it's like that defeats. You guys could just wrote it to begin with, and you actually would have spent less time, I'm sure, because it's. I've looked at AI copy and tried to make edits for clients of mine, and it's like, this is horrible. Like this is the worst job if someone have to have this, because it's like you're editing something that this company thought would be better than a human, and they want you to make it human because they fired humans to even get to this point. It's like, I think companies are very confused too with AI and what they can do with it, and what they should do with it. As we're seeing, now a lot of us are becoming AI literate, where we can go to websites, even advertisements in magazines. You look at something and you kind of know what you're reading is AI. Even pictures, like Vogue had one of their latest spreads be completely AI models, and it was a big deal in the creative community because it's like everyone knows it's an AI model when they're looking at it. That hurts Vogue's brand image so much, but they still did it. And it's like, that's where I get confused, is like, how are the companies making these decisions? And they don't seem like very smart decisions in the long run, because they think that if we make all this AI content, we get to replace our human people. We don't have to pay AI. And in the long run, we get to make more money. We make shareholders happy, but you're just making the shareholders happy. You're not making your customers happy. And in the long run, if your customers aren't happy, you don't have a business to make shareholders happy anymore. So it's just like, I think we are coming to that kind of, I don't know, it's called like an inflection point now, where everything is becoming this weird regurgitated AI kind of thing. You see it in the images. And, we'll see it more and more. I mean, I saw a recent video from the White House that was AI generated. It was just a short thing, and it was a few weeks ago. But, we see the government using AI. But the more that everything becomes AI, we're going to I think, become less and less interested in it. So it's just going to be interesting to see what happens. I'm not sure exactly what will happen, but I'm watching.
That's something you said in there really resonates from my experience as a SaaS founder, because growth rates in SaaS have reached like 20-year low, like on average, right?
Yeah.
Like the average growth rate has gone from like 30 down to 15 in the last 5 years. At the same time, profit margins are at all-time highs. And I think putting two and two together, and based on what I've seen and what you're saying, it's like, well, yeah, they're cutting a ton of people and putting everything out with this generic AI, which saves a ton of costs, so profit goes up, shareholders are happy, but new customer acquisition is way down, like across the board. And for a lot of SaaS companies who raise prices on their customers by at least 10% every year, that means that their actual new customer acquisition is close to zero. Like almost no one is signing up for these products anymore. They're just raising prices on existing customers and then cutting costs to increase profits. And so if that all continues, right, like you're kind of saying with the AI models imploding on themselves, it's like that's also going to implode on itself. Like eventually you just have these kind of zombie companies that make a ton of money but don't move forward. And here's another question that I have for you. I think our entrepreneurial audience is interested in this. I'm personally interested in this. Where do you think the value is in creating content right now? Because you said this earlier and it resonated with me. Like AI is just taking everything that people write. And it seems like we're continuing on that right now. Google is sending less and less traffic. ChatGPT is sending less and less traffic to external sites. They're just taking the content and giving the answers without sending traffic to the publisher. So where have you seen, or do you see the value in creating content right now as a brand or for a brand in terms of actually driving business value?
Yeah. Yeah. So, let me see where I want to start with this. So I think it depends on your business, like what kind of content you're going to create, if you're going to create long form blog posts or not. For websites that are like finance and career focused, a lot of ones that I work with, they kind of thrive on like the information that you get with long form blog posts. The the way to monetize those aren't as easy as they used to be with Google traffic, of course. You could, I mean, there was the whole blogging model for a long time that got pushed almost like, like an MLM, where it's like you can blog, you can drive traffic through SEO, and you can make money off of ads and affiliates, and you can ride pretty clean like that for a while. And that used to be, the early 2000s. That's what it was. And now sites can't do that anymore. I mean, they can try. People can own a lot of these little sites and they'll get, big bumps of traffic from, it's a lot of the kind of throwaway keywords though. And there are things that the ranking changes a lot on it. The way that you get traffic from ChatGPT is different. It doesn't work like, the Google blog traffic or Pinterest blog traffic. People are still able to monetize with ads and affiliates, of course, but we've, this ad spend has gone down, but it just depends on the type of content that you have. For something like Salary Transparency, it's very much focuses the resources. So something like the salary database, the job board, the salary negotiation guides, the quizzes, all of that value folks can get from that. And the best thing about, Salary Transparency works really well with that because they have a business model where they don't charge their users for that information. They make the companies pay for it, which is great. But like my previous site that I had, I like to dabble. A lot of that was traffic came from organic sources and like Google and Pinterest. And I made, in the beginning, a lot of that money I made was ads and affiliates only. And it was very, not easy, but it was a lot simpler than it is now. And that the way I changed up that business model, I kind of lost my passion for the site eventually, and I just wanted to get rid of it. Now I'm exploring writing on a Substack. So I want to put that content behind, at least the content I don't want ChatGPT to get its little fingers on is behind a paywall, because that's the content that it can't take is anything behind a paywall. That's why I think a tool like Substack has become so popular. It's also filled this need to create a whole website that you have to manage your hosting and domain yourself. You can create a Substack pretty easily, low cost, no cost actually. And you can put that content behind a paywall if you're not somebody who wants it, stolen from you. And you're also not at the mercy of Google. You're at the mercy. Well, Substack is pretty cool. Like you have the social media in there. You can do all the searching in there. You can find even pieces from independent journalists and artists that you wouldn't be able to find anywhere else because their stuff isn't coming up in ChatGPT because they protect it. So I think, and then creating like original pieces of content that people can't get anywhere else, and especially not ChatGPT, stuff that includes like personal perspectives and experience, and this of course includes the humanity in it and that special value people get from your content.
This is really interesting to me, actually. Like you're bringing up these ideas of new business models, or maybe they were already there, but it was easier in the past to just create a site and put ads on it and do affiliate stuff. Now those two that you mentioned, where you build a whole media brand and then companies are paying to sponsor and all the content is free for the audience. And then the second one where you're on Substack, or I'm sure there's other platforms that allow you to charge for content and you are going direct, like the consumer is paying directly for that content versus going through the portal of Google. The money is going through this ad exchange and the content's free. Now you just pay directly for the content. And those are two new business models, at least revived for content, that to me, yeah, like you said, in the early 2000s, probably up through like the 2010s, it was just kind of the de facto to like create a bunch of content, put ads on the site, have affiliate links. That's the model. Now you've got Substack, people pay direct, build an audience, brands pay you, content stays free. Are there any other ones that you've seen? Because that's fascinating to me.
Oh yeah, I mean, like there's Patreon is another one. Coffee, Buy Me a Coffee is one that I originally used in the very early days of blogging just to get some extra money. And another thing about these tools that I do love is that, like you said, we're everywhere we go and consume content now, it's becoming this, we can see the AI content and it becomes repetitive where, people go to Substack to read the work from their independent, writers and artists that they love. They know that's not going to be AI generated too, because those folks have taken, they have this integrity. They created the Substack in order to protect their content too, their original content. It's less likely to be AI generated. I'm trying to think. There used to be a tool that I used in WordPress too to paywall certain blog pages. I can't remember what it's called. It might not even be around anymore. But it's a tool similar to like the news sites you go to. If you go to like the like wherever, New York Times, and it pops up like, oh, read this for $20 a month or whatever. It's a similar tool to that. And there are tools available for folks to do that like on their own website if they didn't want to use a tool. And of course, like I think you can set up maybe a paid thing for Beehive or and ConvertKit. You can set up paid subscriptions, and which is similar to Substack, where you get that content behind a paywall in like a newsletter format.
Yeah, I think you're right. Actually, that rings a bell. That I think they've got that all built in now. So yeah, it all makes sense. Like the paid writer, the paid creator is it's this direct model. Or I still like that other business model where you have big companies pay you and then you can make
Yes,
everything free for the audience.
right.
Yeah, Salary Transparent Street. There's a few others that I've talked to recently that are running that model. And it's cool because then they can just focus on doing what they're really good at, which is making excellent content, bringing information to the world that's super valuable and not having to think about like, okay, like what's the tripwire at which I start charging? And then it's that whole old school model of like, this whole complex sales funnel and you're always
Yes.
leaving the good stuff behind, you got to pay 49 for that and then 9.99 for that and then 3,000. It's just like kind of a mess after a while.
Yeah.
So I like all this. And then, circling all the way back around to quizzes, I like the approach that Salary Transparent Street and yourself have taken where it just fits into that model. It's like, oh yeah, we have like a variety of these quizzes. They're not meant to like take a cold customer and start making them pay us $50 a month. They're meant to help solve a problem and be useful in line with all the other content. And you can kind of just run them that way where it's very much in alignment with your whole ethos versus like because a few years ago I think the pattern for quizzes was very much like how do we get somebody to take this quiz and then become a customer and start paying us money, and
Hmm.
that got a little icky after a while where it's like, okay, almost analogous to this current AI thing where everything starts to be the same. Everyone just
Yeah.
started to know like, yeah, at the end of this I'm going to get hit with a paywall. It's going to be useless unless I give them money, and that just puts a bad taste in people's mouth. So yeah, I like all this perspective. This is very helpful, and I'm sure everyone listening is also learning from it. My last question for you is,
Mhm.
what are you excited about with content and like the future of it?
Ooh, oh my God, what am I excited about? I'm excited about the new ways that writers will come up with to create a new feature in content. I think the whole thing with AI will trigger something. I don't know what it is yet. And I'm thinking, on my end too, like what can we do as, writers, content strategists, content marketers to make sure that AI doesn't kind of water down and destroy the industry. The future of content, I know that it's just so weird. It's so murky right now with content and how to see into the future, especially with AI, because so much of it's driven by these, huge companies that are, they've taken all of our resources to create it. That now going forward, we do need to stand up. I mean, just like with any new technology, the regulations and how the government moves with it is much slower than how it's moving, but it needs to start making some headway, especially in the copyright space. I know there's like basically every artist out there is mad about that because they've tried to protect their copyright for so long. Some of us get trademarks to protect our work, and even with that, it's not safe. Trademarks don't exist in the world of AI, and that's a problem. And I think
Hmm.
the creative community will come together soon with ideas on how to make it more sustainable and protect the people that are creating the original content that makes AI possible in the first place. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I am with you on that. I'm excited to see what happens to break through in the written world. It kind of seems like in the like video visual world, it's a little bit easier because AI video is still pretty recognizable,
Yeah.
as is like AI images even. But especially if you're doing like short form video, like it's so easy to tell like this is not a real person. So it's a little bit easier in like the TikTok, Instagram world, but in written world, I'm with you. I'm excited to see how it's going to evolve.
Yes, I just had a thought that came to me. So it's
Yeah.
that's one of those thoughts where it like comes into your head and you like barely grabbed it, so it's like going away. So like when with the way that like with the way AI is used at companies, even by employees or the company itself, there's a lot of a legal gray area as well, especially with content that we haven't set any ground rules for, like with actual processes at these companies of what should AI be used for and what AI should not be used for. I do love it for quick analysis, some quick ideas for me, some research. And I think in the future as well, companies will start to create those processes. There will be more of like a universal kind of expected way to use AI rather than right now. We see people, you know, try taking tests with it, doing their entire job with it, things like that, where there will eventually be the middle ground there too in the content space of what we can and can't use it for, or should
That's
and
a good
shouldn't use it
point.
for.
That's a good point. Yeah, like once that gets more solidified, then that might help answer that same question that you proposed of like, where is it going to go? What's it going to look
Yeah.
like? But yeah, I think, yeah, I feel hopeful about it. I'm like, the way that you laid it out was helpful, where it's like, it's all just kind of converging to AI slop. That's what they call it. It's like,
Yeah.
it is. It's like I don't want to read another website that looks exactly the same. I don't want to read another blog that looks exactly the same. Even the ChatGPT results, I think people are getting some fatigue on where it's like it's kind of the same. It gives you a list of options or a list of answers to your question that really lack any sort of soul, for lack of a better term. Like it's a
Yeah.
soulless experience, and like people will fatigue of that. So I'm with you, excited. Where can folks go to follow your work or see your portfolio, check out what you're up to?
Yeah, so anyone can follow me on LinkedIn, Daniella Flores. And I'm getting my new Substack kind of up and going. Nothing's on there yet, but slowly but surely. It's called Rightfully Yours. So if you ever
Hmm,
want to check it out.
that's a cool name. I like that. Is it like right, like the word right?
Yeah.
Fully yours. Okay,
Yeah.
awesome, awesome. Yeah, we'll link those in the show notes. Well, thanks so much, Daniela. This is an awesome conversation. Sure, a ton of value for the listeners, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. This is fun.